Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Journey to Happiness. So, if you are somebody who is curious about what a spiritual awakening is, if you're somebody who thinks you might be going through that, and you just need a community or somebody to help guide you through that, or talk about it, or you're just interested, then this podcast is for you, and this episode is for you. I've been talking about spiritual awakenings a lot lately, and I'm going to continue that talk. And today we're going to talk about something that nobody really talks about when you hear the words spiritual awakening, and that is the healing process. Because when you hear spiritual awakening, sometimes you think about like butterflies and rainbows and angel numbers and spirit guides and your higher self and being one with God, and that is all true and fine and great. But there are a lot of parts to it that go along with it. And it's a bumpy ride. It really is. I think I've talked about this before, but there used to be a meme that I saw going around, and it was like this meme. And on one side, it was like what people think a spiritual awakening is. And it was like this girl with these rainbows and these butterflies and all of these things. And then on the other side, it was like what a spiritual awakening really is. And it was like this kid on this roller coaster with like screaming. That's kind of how it is. So today, I want to talk about something called healing. And obviously, I'm sure you've heard that word before. What is healing? Okay. When I talk about healing in the sense of a spiritual awakening healing, when you're going through a healing process because you've had this spiritual awakening, it's a little bit different because we have healing with the body, right? We have a disease that heals. We have healing from relationships, all those things. That's all fine and good, and that's part of it. But healing during a spiritual awakening is more about healing the mind and healing your traumas and healing those subconscious beliefs that you have grown up with because of things that happened to you in your life. So it's not, for an example, so we'll just take the relationship example. It's not just like you're healing your broken heart because you had your heart broke from this relationship. It is healing the parts of you that attracted that relationship in the first place. So I should have prefaced this by saying this may trigger a few people because the thing is, we're responsible for all of it. And it's not our fault. We're not responsible on a conscious level, but it's the subconscious mind that is driving everything that we're attracting into our lives. It is manifestation in its finest form, whether we are wanting to manifest those things or not. It is the way we believe about ourselves. Everything that happens in our life is coming from our mind. We are extremely, extremely powerful souls living this human experience. We are so fucking powerful. That's how powerful we are, is that we can like make things happen by the way that we think. But the problem is, a lot of these beliefs are on the subconscious level. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that we're not aware of them. So, another example, because I talk a lot about self-love and relationships on this podcast also, is you're attracting people into your life who are making you feel not worthy, who are cheating on you, who are emotionally unavailable to you, who don't make you a priority. You've attracted toxic relationships over and over again. And yet you're saying to everybody, like, I love myself, I value myself, I'm worthy. Well, if you're attracting those kind of relationships into your life, those toxic relationships, the ones who abandon you, the ones who make you feel unworthy, the ones who don't make you a priority, all of those relationships, you're attracting those because of something that you feel on the inside. So you can sit there and preach until the cows come home that you love yourself and that you do believe that you're worthy, but all you have to do is look at what you're attracting into your life. What kinds of things are you attracting? Well, if you're attracting those type of people into your life, then there is a subconscious belief that you are not worthy and that you don't love yourself. Oh, sorry, I had to pause it for a second. But anyway, so what are the other parts of this? Well, this is also what people call shadow work. So, what is shadow work? Well, shadow work is the same thing as this healing that I'm talking about. It is the deep subconscious beliefs that we have underneath the surface that we are not aware of. And the point is to get to those because all of the things that have happened to us in our lives from the moment we were born, they have all shaped our lives. And so I'm a big believer that everybody has trauma, whether it's big, whether it's little. And I think a lot of us, we go through life believing that we don't. I mean, I think sometimes people know because they're just like, oh, I was abused, or I had this major, big, life-changing thing happen to me. But there's other ones of us who have trauma who have more little t trauma. And oh gosh, now we've got dogs in my bedroom. So sorry guys. Um Anyway, so I had the door shut and everybody just decided to come in while I'm trying to record a podcast, but it's fine. We're just gonna keep rolling with it. But yeah, so I think that, for me, I know I went years not realizing I had trauma, so we all have it. And what happens is that trauma shapes our lives and we have the multi-generational trauma, right? So we have the trauma that happened to our parents or our ancestors that, we're carrying their DNA. So that trauma gets stuck in our bodies too. So all of this stuff that I'm talking about, this is all part of the healing process when you have a spiritual awakening, because after you have that spiritual awakening, you start to realize that you have all of these things inside of you. And a lot of this is just healing of the mind. It's healing the subconscious beliefs that you are good enough. And it's healing the subconscious beliefs that, everything is happened for a reason and that we have these contracts and we come here to learn these lessons and it's healing all of that. It's understanding all of that. And then it's also healing the mind. It's healing the parts of us we that we abandon, And the reason I think this is so hard, it's the hardest kind of healing there is because we have to take responsibility for the things that have happened in our lives. I don't mean the responsibility for whatever trauma you have. I'm not saying it's your fault that, you were physically abused as a child or you had a father abandon you or anything like that. It's not your fault, obviously, but you have to take responsibility for the fact that, first of all, you signed up for that. First of all, your soul came here to learn that lesson, and that father leaving you, that physical abuse you suffered, that relationship ending, whatever it was that happened to you, it happened because your soul needed it to happen so it could evolve and grow. So that's the first step is understanding that like you chose this before you ever incarnated here on earth. You just don't remember it. So you have to take responsibility for that, and that is hard. And then you have to take responsibility for like all the things that have happened in your life, whether it's the relationships that have ended or the toxic relationships that you found yourself in, or the narcissistic bosses that you've always had, the friends that have always left you or made you feel like an outcast, all of the things that have happened, all of the people, mostly the people that you've attracted into your life. And it doesn't have to be all be people either. It could be living situations. It could be your financial situations. That's something I've been going through. All of the things that have happened to you, you have to start taking responsibility for them. And that is part of the healing process that I am talking about because when you start to take responsibility for those action or for those things happening to you, you start to understand so much more about yourself. But it's really fucking hard, right? It's really hard to have to be like, okay, I'm kind of responsible for creating this. I'm kind of responsible for this. And, I hear so many people so many times, and I was one of them, so no judgment here. With relationships. Again, we'll go back to that topic because it's something I know a lot about and something I've healed a lot of those internal wounds around. But that's something that people, they get heartbroken and over, and they're constantly like, why do I keep finding these same type of men? Why can't, men are stupid, men are pigs, like there's no good men left. Like why do well, first of all, if you're saying there's no good men left, like that, there you go, you're manifesting no good men, right? So that's the first step there. But also it's just like they don't understand and they're just constantly talking like that. And what they have to understand, if you're listening and you're one of those, what you have to understand is that it's because you have a subconscious belief in your brain that is attracting these people to you because there is something about you who doesn't feel worthy, who doesn't love herself, who is abandoning herself, who is not taking care of herself the way she should, or him, either one, man or woman. And when you have a spiritual awakening, stuff starts to become very prominent in your life, and you have to take that responsibility for everything that's happened. And so I think that is one of the hardest parts of a spiritual awakening is going back and revisiting your wounds, going back and revisiting your traumas, and then understanding that like the things about you that you didn't understand before, that is really, really a struggle for a lot of us, for pretty much everybody. Um, it's definitely worth it, but when you're on this path, sometimes you almost feel like, oh gosh, I wish I could just go back to not understanding all of this stuff. Like wish I could go back to being asleep because, life was a little bit easier then, even though like it wasn't, it sucked. But at the same time, it was a little bit easier because I didn't have to deal with all of this stuff in my head and understanding that I'm responsible for all of these things and the trauma that I dealt with, like I said, for years, I didn't know I had trauma. Like I was like, I had a good life, I had a good family, all these things, but I really did have trauma and I had um I have abandonment wounds even though I didn't realize it. And it wasn't until I had the spiritual awakening and started doing shadow work and started understanding you know understanding my wounds and understanding that I was worthy. And I had to really start to love myself. And that is a really hard thing to do sometimes because if you're somebody like me who, has been through a lot of the relationships and being abandoned over and over again, it's hard to love yourself sometimes because you feel like if you were worthy and if you were worthy of love, that people would have stuck around. But when you have a spiritual awakening and you start to deal with all of your internal wounds, you realize that that's not the case, that the reason those people weren't sticking around is because you didn't love yourself and they were just reflecting back to you what you believed on the inside about yourself. So I hope that makes sense. So how do you start to do shadow work? How do you start to delve into the subconscious mind? Well, first of all, I suggest getting a coach. I know that that's easier said than done sometimes, as far as like, sometimes people are like, well, I don't have the money to hire a coach. You can find a lot of stuff on podcasts. You can find a lot of stuff on YouTube, on um, TikTok. There's a lot of people out there that are, I'm one of them. I'm just one of many teaching this stuff. I definitely suggest you get one of those because what a coach can do for you is a coach can see the things that you can't see because you're too close to the issue. So I know for me, for example, I definitely suggest a coach, first of all, who is talking spirituality and who is spiritually awake, because for most of us who have awakened spiritually, we've also awakened to gifts. And what I mean by that is like I don't know if I want to call it psychic gifts, but intuitive gifts. And, for me, I can talk to somebody for a short amount of time and I can pretty much know where their trauma is coming from, whether and what is happening on the inside. The issue is if the person is not aware of it, then no matter what I say is nothing's going to help. So the first step is honestly you do have to become aware. You have to understand that there is something in your life that is wrong. You have to understand that there are wounds that you need to uncover, and you have to be aware that there's an internal belief that you might not be aware of that needs to come to the surface so that you can heal it. Because if you're not aware, then actually hiring a coach isn't going to do you any good because that coach is probably going to tell you some things that you're not going to believe and it's not going to get you anywhere. So I guess becoming aware would actually be the first step. And then I suggest hiring a coach. Hiring a coach can again help you see the things that maybe you're not um able to see firsthand. Other things that can help with this, obviously, I turn to spirituality, I turn to my spirit guides, and I turn to God and I pray. But also, like looking at if we're talking about worthiness, looking at things that you see in your life and things about you that you do find worthy. And you can start to like what you have to do. You can't just say affirmations because affirmations are great, but if you don't get to the subconscious level, then it's really not going to help you. Your brain likes proof. So one of my things that I did, because I had a lot of worthiness wounds, so I started writing on a piece of paper all the qualities about me that made me worthy and lovable, and all the qualities about myself that I liked. And I got these from friends, I got these from my own thoughts. I got this by seeing that in other people, because anything that you can see in somebody else means that you have that quality within yourself. So I started doing that, and then I connected that to a memory. So, for example, I used one of the things I used was I am smart. Well, what is the memory that I have of being smart? Well, I graduated in the top 10 of my class in nursing school. That's pretty damn cool, right? Like that means I'm pretty smart. So I put that on my sheet of paper, and I connected being smart to a memory. And that's what your brain likes to do. So that's just something as far as worthiness wounds that you can do. As far as getting to the subconscious, again, it is, I highly suggest coaches. There are coaches out there who do hypnotherapy. I'm not one of those. I do not do hypnotherapy. I've not learned that yet. That's on my bucket list, but I do not do that. But there are coaches out there who can. Definitely suggest journaling can be a great outlet. I already talked about writing those qualities on a paper, like, getting to like to start feeling worthy, but also just journaling in general can be really, really powerful because it can get to, if you just start journaling, it can start getting to the subconscious parts of your mind that you're not aware of. I also say paying attention to your dreams, because your dreams are also parts of the subconscious mind that are trying to tell you something. So, paying attention to your dreams and writing those down, if you're somebody who does remember their dreams, that is another aspect where you can get to the subconscious parts of your brain, because that's what it's about. You have to start believing, or you have to start seeing like what's underneath the surface. And again, I think it's hard when you haven't had a spiritual awakening. I think it's a little easier when you've had a spirit, because like before I had a spiritual awakening, I was kind of like I knew, like I literally knew there was something there. Like I was feeling it. I was like, what is freaking wrong with me? Like what is happening? Like there's a reason I keep attracting the same people into my life. I don't know how to get to those parts of me. And then I had this awakening, and all of a sudden, like everything became very crystal clear to me. But on the other hand, like not everybody, I don't think everybody in this lifetime is meant to have a spiritual awakening. I think that many of us are. I think that we are going to through a mass collective spiritual awakening process right now on this planet. I think we are moving into the two Earths. The new Earth, as Dolores Cannon used to call it. And I think we are moving into that. But I don't think that everybody on this planet is meant to have one in this lifetime. And I think all we can do for those people is just be here as fellow humans and just try to help them as much as we can. Sometimes it's frustrating when you can see people that need help, and you can't help them because they're not aware that they need help. Um, yeah, I wanted to talk about this a little bit, and I hope it all made sense, because I think that for many people, when you have a spiritual awakening, like when I had mine, it was so sudden. I had not even heard the word spiritual awakening. Like I didn't even know what that was. And I was going through it for a while, just not understanding that I was going through it. And then when it happened, and I was like in meditation, and all of a sudden there was like tingles going up my spine, and I opened my eyes, and I felt like I was being reborn, and I didn't know anything that was happening because I never heard those words before. But I remember like in my head instantly, it was like my higher self or whatever was like, "Oh, you just had a spiritual awakening." And it was, at first it was like just very blissful, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, this is what love really is. This is what like goodness is. This is what kindness is. This is what God is. This is what angels are." Like all of the things. And then everything else hit. very suddenly. And it was like, I was like, oh, this sucks. For a little while, I was like, this fucking sucks because all of a sudden I was like crying and I was like, oh, well, I did all these things and like all of the old shit that you've done to people comes up too. And you're just like, I didn't mean it to be that much of like that horrible, but like I did this thing to this person and now I don't even know what to do. Like you just want to like write everybody and like apologize to anybody you've ever thought that you wronged. And it's really a lot. It's really a lot. So that's another part of the healing process is realizing that the things that you've done to people too. It's pretty crazy. And I wanted to talk about it because I think when you hear the term spiritual awakening, sometimes you don't understand that there is a not so fun part to it, and that is the healing. But it's very powerful, right? It's a very powerful thing that happens. It is and it is leading to a better life, but there are times that you wish that you were not awake. There are times that you wish you were still asleep because there's so much more to it. I've already talked about the food stuff in the previous episode, so go listen to that if you haven't yet. I've, I haven't even dived into all of the other shit, like the collective stuff, the big pharma stuff, the medical industry stuff, the religion, the skulls, the all I haven't even dived into all of it yet, and who knows when I will. But when you are awake, you start to see all of these things for what they are, and it's hard, but it is worth it. The healing journey is worth it because once you begin to heal the past traumas, the past subconscious beliefs that you have about yourself, then the more you can step into who you came on this earth to be in the first place. And you will start attracting people into your life who reflect that back to you, and you will start to live in alignment, which is why I'm doing these podcasts because this is something that I started feeling called to do and that's why I'm doing them to share my journey with you guys. And I hope that you get some benefit from this and that you can relate and just know that you're not alone. So I'm going to leave you with a little TikTok quotes that I saw. This person, I'm going to give her credit. Her name, she goes by Sparky Spark on TikTok. And she talks a lot about spiritual awakenings and healing also. And I don't know, I'm thinking maybe I should ask her on the podcast sometime, but we'll see if that happens. But this is something that I saw that she posted not too long ago, and I wanted to kind of read it to you guys because I think it just kind of goes along with this podcast episode and what all of this means. Awakening isn't the hard part, healing is. Everyone thinks awakening is all angel numbers and peace signs, but healing, that's where the real work begins. It looks like realizing your family shaped your wounds and then sitting with the ache that they may never apologize for it. It looks like anger at the systems that lied to you religion, school, media. You don't just wake up, you grieve the illusion. It looks like crying over things you didn't even know were still buried childhood memories, old relationships, versions of you that never felt safe to exist. It looks like being triggered by people still living asleep, not because you judge them, but because they reflect who you used to be and who you can't be anymore. It looks like letting go of people who don't want to grow with you, friends, partners, family, not from hate, but from honoring your alignment. It looks like questioning your sanity until the signs confirm you're not crazy. You feel more, you see more, and that makes you different, but not broken. And finally, it looks like peace, not because life is perfect, but because you stopped abandoning yourself. Because you stopped abandoning yourself. Remember that, friends. You thought you were breaking down, but you were actually breaking open. This is what healing looks like. It's not pretty, but it is powerful. That is all for this episode of Journey to Happiness. Please, if you got benefit out of this, if you liked this episode or any of my other episodes, subscribe to this podcast. You will get notified when I upload, which is every Monday as of right now. And please leave me a review because it really helps the algorithm. It helps the podcast world know that we're here, whether you're listening on a podcast or on YouTube. Please just leave me reviews, leave me comments, let me know what you think, because I would love to hear from you. Until next week, when we meet again, I love you guys so much. Have a beautiful and wonderful week because you all deserve it. Bye for now.